We are incredibly excited to announce the release of Spider Impact 5.7. There are over 75 enhancements in this big software release, many for power users who are able to get more out of the software than ever before. This is not a video for them, though. This is a video for people who are just getting started in Spider Impact or might not be as familiar with the software. This shows how these new features can help you get the most of your software without being a power user. So let's jump right into it. We're just going to cover a couple enhancements today. But as we jump into this, it's important to talk about the three types of data Spider Impact tracks, right? So we've got the scorecard section here. This tracks your company's strategy. It takes your big picture strategy, breaks it into smaller groups like these perspectives, the financial perspective. And then it breaks it into objectives like increase revenue. And then underneath that, you measure things with these measures or metrics or KPIs, whatever you want to call them, product revenue, training revenue. And so all these KPIs get a goal and a red flag, and then based on the actual performance, you get a score, and it rolls the score up the tree to see if you're reaching your big picture strategy. So that's the scorecard section. You measure the same things over and over and over again for every month. The initiative section supports the scorecard section. If something's going wrong, you put an initiative in place to fix it. And there's this start date and an end date. You know, if I'm hemorrhaging money in my IT department, maybe I'm going to put an initiative into place called Migrate Servers to the Cloud. And over time, I update it with what percentage complete and how much money I've spent, and it's going to project whether you finish on time and under budget. So that's the initiative section. It's projects that have a start date and end date, and they're to fix performance problems for your company strategy. The very last place is the data set section. It's where you store your large unstructured data. So the concept here is I've got all these different, my HR system might feed data in here. I might feed data in from an employee survey. I might feed data in from a API from my Salesforce.com or whatever. It's a place to organize all your performance data in one spot, but it doesn't necessarily have goals or anything like that. It's just, a repository for all your data. All right, so those are the three types of information. Let's jump into the enhancements for version 5.7. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today has to do with data visualization because that's one of the biggest wins that people can get when they first start using our software. Here's what our dashboards look like. This is a sales versus expenses dashboard where it breaks down where my revenue is coming from, where my costs are coming from. I've got, different operating expenses. Here's a sales pipeline. It's an infographic breaking down, a flow of data down a funnel. And you can click on any of these things. It's all live. All this data is updated, showing the latest information for that particular month. If you've got a question, you can click on it and it drills into the scorecard section, the new trials KPI behind the scenes. And so all of the data that you're going to see in these visualizations are pulling from one of these three sections here. There's interactive, sales total. If I want to see, Holly's sales in Europe, it's going to slice and dice all this stuff, and it's going to project, what her sales will be in the future. So that's the type of visualizations we can do. Let's look at new stuff in version 5.7. So our dashboards are a lot like PowerPoint. You can drag and drop things around or whatever. We're going to grab this chart and make it really big. And we're going to edit it, and we're going to turn on line labels. So we're going to show a label for the data series names, product costs. That's brand new. You're able to do that. And then we can do the charted values. So we can show, this is what the values look like over time directly added to the chart. And you can see when there's not enough space to show a lot of them, we'll change the font size and we'll, add and remove labels when they don't fit. So that's one of the enhancements coming in. Another enhancement coming in is these speedometers used to be able to only show scorecard data. Now they can show data for initiatives and data sets. So when you add widgets to your menu, there's this big menu of all these predefined things. You can do initiative charts, gauges, speedometers. I can add a chart here. There's all different types of charts. There's maps, there's, infographics. We saw that funnel before, right? These are all predefined objects. You can just plug in your real data and it automatically lights up with your colors live. So if I want to add a speedometer widget, I can choose a scorecard speedometer. I say, all right, I want the increased revenue speedometer and I want the net operating profit speedometer, right? It's super fast to add these things to your dashboards. And whatever kind of data you want, you can drag and drop these things. You can align everything on top, you know, all the controls that you're used to from PowerPoint. But now you can wire these things up to dataset value. So I can go up here and I can choose dataset speedometer. And I would say, I want to say device sales. I want to say the sale price, the total sales price. I want to see how much money I made, right? And right now, this thing is $30 million in total sales, but I'm going to add a filter. So I'm going to go to edit data source and I'm change the filter and I'm going to say, actually only show me where the sales date is in the current period. So what this does is it looks at October 24th and shows me that I had, you know, just over $500,000 of sales. And if I go back in time, this number automatically updates to match all the other KPI speedometers. But because it's pulling data from a data set, I can now set these custom scoring thresholds, and we don't need any of that stuff, but we can change the color scheme to be, let's do this heat map style color scheme and change the number of segments to this. And so if I'm going to do, let's say I'm going to start with 350,000, I'm going to go to maybe 900,000. And so now I've got this speedometer with all these different gauges. Instead of red, yellow, green stoplight, now I've got this thing that kind of jumps all over the place with this heat map style gauges where it starts, you know, kind of a light yellow going to a dark purple. So that's something brand new. You can do that with gauges or speedometers now with data sets. But probably the biggest thing for new users in this version 5.7 are shape and line widgets. So this is just like PowerPoint where you can add a wide variety. I think we've got 40 shapes or something like that. They're customizable. They're as good or better than whatever you're going to see in PowerPoint, but you're able to show live data using these shapes. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So you can just add them to your dashboard however you want. We'll add a couple of, I don't know, I'm just grabbing random stuff here. Okay, so that's some shapes. So these are just like PowerPoint in the sense that you can drag and drop them, you can rotate them or whatever, but what's nice is there's configuration within the shape. So I can change the corner radius on this rounded rectangle, or I can change, you know, the 3D perspective on this cylinder, or on this arrow, I can adjust this thing and I can change, you know, the width or height or whatever, right? There's a lot of different configuration options you can do on all these line and shape widgets. You know, rotate them around. And what's nice about these things is that you can do information flows, which is pretty handy. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So let's say I want, again, this is going to be a completely makeshift kind of ugly situation, but let's say I want to go, you know, information flow from this thing to that thing. I'm going to bring this thing on top, keep it in front there, and I'm going to keep that in front there. And whatever, I can, you know, label whatever I want to show information flows. And that kind of brings up the next piece of this, which is these things become incredibly powerful when you wire them up to real data. So let's say I want this to show an actual value of something. So I'm going to go in here and I can go display and formatting. There's all the different types of configuration options I can change. I can change that shape, you know, pick up any shape option. I can change the fill from solid, gradient, or none. I can change the fill color. As a matter of fact, let's manually set a fill color to yellow, and you can see the outline and the fill color, you know, it automatically adjusts to make it look good, right? So you can, you know, recreate the PowerPoints that your leadership wants to see, and then, you know, have a update automatically every month with real data. But getting off track here, this is the, when you wire it up, you go to set data source, and this is where it gets really powerful. So I can choose the data set value that we talked about earlier. I'm going to go to device sales, and I'm going to do that sale price, and I'm going to do the filter, which is the sale date is in the current period. So these are the numbers we see before, right? It's right about 500,000 in sales, and it jumps all around based on the current month. And we can do font size and can really make that thing big. And maybe we want to put a label on the thing to make a title. So now I have a widget showing total sales, right? And it's flowing over to some other thing that shows some other value. Let's just give it a color. Whatever that is, it's showing some other value for something, right? And that right there, it just kind of gives you an idea of the type of information flows you can create dashboards and create some really attractive looking stuff. But there's a lot of different configurations options. The shape widget actually does more than just shapes. So we're going to go here to display and formatting, and we're going to do the fill, and we're going to turn off the fill, and we're going to turn off the outline. And now all of a sudden, we've got a widget here that is displaying colored text instead of a shape. So when I go back and forth through time, it's going to automatically update that color. Let's see if we can hit another. Oh, it's right now it's locked into yellow. But we can also go to right, obviously, set the text color to conditional, and we can set whatever we want here. So it's going to be 300 and 700. So now I've got text that dynamically updates based on, you see how that one got a little bit darker, based on the value for that particular month. So you can get text that automatically changes. But like I was saying, another really neat thing that you can do is you can set the text color to a very specific color, like a dark green, and turn off the title. And that is really, really helpful for creating infographic style things where you change the period and that text color never changes. And let me show you what that is useful for. So here's an agriculture infographic, and you can see here, I've got these colored numbers that never change because they perfectly match the overall aesthetic of this dashboard. And as I'm moving through time, my numbers update live, and I can click on this, a 1070 sheep, and I can look in, okay, there's the sheep KPI at 1070, and I can go back to, the actual infographic itself. But these new shape widgets where you can turn off the shape, and you can even make the color static like this, allows you to display any value in the software, whether it comes from an initiative or whether it comes from a data set, or whether it comes from a KPI or scorecard item. You're able to show live data on really great looking infographics like this. Okay. Very last thing I want to show you with this shape widget is we've got these strategy maps. You've seen them before. They're balanced scorecard style strategy maps. They've got bubbles, and again, you can click to drill down. Well, it's all wired up to the shape widget now. So I can go in here and I can go to display and formatting, and I can actually change it. So now I have a wide menu of different types of things I can include on my strategy map. So here I've got a diamond that I can rotate this, and see how those little arrows automatically link up to this thing. It's great looking dashboard type stuff. And so if I wanted to adjust the type of shapes I use on my strategy map, I can. I've already done that right here, where this is a background kind of shape where you can adjust that and have show data flowing from one object to another. Okay, so that's the shapes widgets. That's data visualizations. Again, there's a whole lot more that's going into version 5.7, but this is the kind of stuff that a brand new user might be interested in. Let me show you just a couple more things. In the scorecard section, we've got a standard appearance that you can edit this chart and change some configuration settings, but it only applies to that one particular scorecard item. There are now settings in administration where you can change that. Let's go over here to application administration. At the very bottom here, we've got, do you want to show the description on the overview? Do you want to show a line chart or a bar chart? Do you want to show background thresholds? How many periods do you want to show? How much data? So there's all kinds of configuration options that you can change about that overview screen. But that's one of many, many, many enhancements going into the admin section in this new version. Here's a couple more. Remember how I talked earlier about, do you call them KPIs? Do you call them metrics? Do you call them measures? Well, this is something that's now configurable in the application. So if I'm over here and I'm at measure, you want to call it a KPI and KPIs or whatever you want. Or, over here for key performance area, you can call things whatever you want. So if you, instead of calling them KPIs, maybe you call them OSIs or whatever. I'm just making something up. But you can change, you can call them whatever you want in the software. So it allows you to go in without much configuration hassle and just go in and call whatever objects you want in the software in case your company's methodology doesn't quite match a popular methodology. You can upload a logo, so when you log into the application, it changes whatever logo you see. You can have a custom email signature so that whenever the application sends out an email, maybe it says, for support, go to this particular URL or something like that. In the initiative section, right now, like I said, remember it projects whether you're going to be on time or under budget. Historically, if you are $1 over budget, you're red, and if you're 1 day late, you're red for your schedule. Well, now there's a optional cost overage and late schedule grace period where you can be yellow. So if I am over budget but within 10% of budget, I'm yellow, and if I'm late but within 10% of being on schedule, I'm yellow. And so let's see what that looks like. We're going to click back to the initiative section. And in this situation, I'm 61 days late, but I am within the grace period, and so I'm yellow. And of course, as before, combining reds and greens together make a red because it takes the one that's worse. Combining a red and a yellow together gives you a red for overall performance. All right, two more things I want to show you here. The admin section has one additional setting, or one additional feature, and that's called permissions audits. So in our software, we have customers with thousands and thousands of users, and it's imperative that if you want good data governance, you're able to run audits to see who can see what. So now we have user level audits, organization level audits, and data set level audits. So at the user level audit, if I choose full user, it shows you all of the organizations that this particular user can view, how they got the permission to do it, and what they're capable of doing when they get to that organization. Similarly, if you go to an organization, you can pick an organization here with this organization permissions audit, and it lists everybody who can view that organization, how they got that permission, and what they can do when they're there. So you can take these reports and you can export them to PDF. You can download them whenever you want, or you can schedule repeating and say, hey, every last day of the month, send a report out to the system administrator saying, hey, these are all the permissions for this particular sensitive organization. Verify that these permissions are correct. So it allows you to keep an eye on all the permissions in the software. All right. I'm almost done. I promise I'll wrap it up quickly. The very, very last thing is Spider Impact's great when you take all your data from all your organization and bring it into one spot to manage. The problem is, what do you do when the data you want doesn't exist anywhere, right? If I want to know how happy my employees are, or I want to track the hardware, my laptops in my organization, that data might not exist anywhere. And that's why we've got the form section. So you can do object management, like this customer management form where it lists all my customers. I can search for a particular customer name, and I can click on Colleen Benningfield, and I can see that Colleen made one purchase way back in April, and I can edit her contact information. And I search for somebody else, and I look at Abby Giel. Abby's purchase was a few years earlier, or Abigail Pellin had a couple of purchases over time. So that's the kind of thing that you can do in the forms section. Here's an employee satisfaction survey where you can fill out how satisfied you are with the company, or your experiences or whatever. So in version 5.7, there's some new stuff in forms. There's this new dashboard widget. So forms are these no-code little mini apps you build. You can add logic in. You can add these objects like checkboxes, text, or this new dashboard widget. And what the dashboard widget does is allows you to add a mini dashboard into your form. And so here I've uploaded a logo. I've added some text, but you could add the speedometers we were talking about earlier, a little chart showing data or whatever you want. And so, you're able to create these little attractive headers for your forms. The thing you saw earlier in this customer management form is another dashboard widget on the top, but this thing showed live data, and it's filtering based on the current user. So here is the total number of sales of all time for all users, and here's show a little bar chart showing the number of sales total, but we've got a filter applied. So when you edit this thing, I'm saying set the filter to the customer ID so that when the customer logs in, or when you click on a customer, it filters it down and just shows you records for the current customer that I've selected. So that's a new type of thing that you can add in 5.7. The very last thing with these forms is you can get some pretty complex logic, and we've added a whole bunch of new options in 5.7. So you can interact with this thing. I prefer to submit this anonymously, so when I click yes, the name disappears. So as you interact with different objects, if different conditions are met, different things can be hidden or shown, or different attributes changed. It's very dynamic. Let me show you how that works. So if I go in on page display actions, when the page first displays, it says set the field to the current date. Set the survey date to the current date, set anonymous to no, set employee name to a particular thing, or whatever, right? There's complex logic that you can do when you interact with these things. So I prefer to submit this survey anonymously. And when you interact with it, what does it say? If anonymous is yes, then change your name to hidden, and then set the employee name to blank. Otherwise, set the employee name to Kyle Madison or whatever the current user is, that kind of thing. So that's the logic that you can run, and you can interact with these things and drag and drop and set complex logic. There's a couple of new actions that you can do. And so, I click that submit button. What do the buttons say? It says, save the current record and go to a new form page. There's new actions, and they are send an alert. I can send an alert saying, hey, this person submitted the form, make sure to go log in and validate the information or something. Another option is you can set a field value. So you can say, you can set a particular value to the current date and time. They submitted this form at this particular time. You can set it to the user's information, like their name or their email or IP address or whatever, right? So there's a lot of different new complicated options you can do when you're building these little mini apps, these forms for interacting with your data. So we are incredibly excited, like I said, to get this software out there. We've got all kinds of options to support you. We've got our customer success specialist standing by. If you want a free trial of the software, or you want more information about how version 5.7 can help your company execute its strategy, please reach out to us. We're standing by.